Hello, everybody. It is Friday, August 16th, 2019. This is kops Office Hours. I am your moderator, facilitator, Justin Santa Barbara. I work at Google. I am pasting a link to the minutes where people may or may not have access to add their names. But please do try to add your name. We can talk about that in a second. And then if you do have items for the agenda, please put them on the agenda. For people that are wondering, something odd happened to the permissions. We're not entirely sure why. So I added back the permissions, which I thought it should have, but probably we need to give some group more permissions to directly edit. I am adding people individually until we figure out what that group is. But certainly you can comment and I will click the tick button as quickly, or if you're a member of SIG Cluster Lifecycle or SIG AWS, you can comment and those Google groups. I will click the tick button as fast as I can. I didn't have tick permission myself earlier, so thank you to the people that were ticking on mine. After that joyful announcement, let's get into it. So Peter, you nudged me about new AMIs. You're on mute. I'm gonna, yes, and I actually did some new AMIs as of this morning, and the really good news is that they actually are being built from, there's an image builder subproject of SIG Cluster Lifecycle, and so we are trying to move over there, and I built it from there, and right now, basically, all the kube deploy stuff is just in a subdirectory that we're essentially trying to rationalize, but at least we are in a better location where all the image building is taking place. The PRs aren't up yet. There's a massive copy PR, and then I'll do the actual PRs themselves, but that's in good shape. And so there are PRs that went up. Sorry, there are AMIs that went up for 111, 112, 113, and 114. And there is a PR to put them in the alpha channel. And we can talk a little bit about, or we can talk later about like the sort of agreeing the releases that we intend to do over the next 2 weeks. But they are there and in the alpha channel, and if you want to try them, they should work. The date is 20190816. So if you want to try that, you can try that. And more concerningly, ZTab, I guess, I don't know exactly how to pronounce that. I don't know if you're here. I don't see you here. Has pointed out that there is a challenge with the newer version of Debian, Buster, the one after Stretch, which is not yet, I don't know, it's not fully stable or whatever, or not the official stable release yet. But in general, IP tables 1.8 no longer uses IP tables on the back end and now uses NF tables, but it's still called IP tables. And apparently you can't mix IP tables and NF tables, and it's all sorts of fun. And there is a link to a Kubernetes issue there where I am trying to get people to figure out what we should do. But honestly, anyone that we can easily put a version of IP tables into the AMIs that we bake and sort of stick to that version. The real pain point is sort of switching or trying to change from one to the other, because it's mixing that's the real problem. So we might be in better shape for people that are using the AMIs, but we want to find something that works for everyone to some degree. But it's not clear how that would work. So discussion is happening on that upstream Kubernetes issue number 71305. Next up, etcd managers, etcd manager PRs for DigitalOcean and OpenStack. I actually reviewed those and approved them this morning. So there is initial support in etcd manager for DigitalOcean and OpenStack, which is great news. It means they can presumably now go past 112, which is good. And I think that PR, I think, was it ZTab that put in the, I think ZTab also put in the, I don't know, what, Jesse anyway, put in a PR to actually activate that. And I think we're going to try to get that into 114, which we are going to discuss in a little bit. And there is a new etcd manager with those changes in it, and there's not really anything else in there. So that should be fine. Jesse also brings up, if there's nothing else on that, Jesse also brings up that we should think about cloud provider extraction. OpenStack is doing it, or has done it. And that's great news. The other in-tree providers are in the process of moving, and I don't necessarily want us to be the first ones to do it. But we might want to consider adding support. I don't believe that any of them are necessarily at the stage where we would recommend, any of them other than OpenStack are necessarily at the stage where we would recommend using the external cloud providers, but I could be wrong on that. I'm really thinking about AWS and GCE here, where my understanding is the in-tree ones are still the golden, the primary targets, and using the external ones would be problematic or less likely to succeed. But we probably should think about getting them in as an option. Okay, next up, this is, so as I'm sure people know, the binaries are still currently coming from my S3 bucket, so I occasionally look at the bill and what's causing the bill to go up so high. And one of the things that is still a little concerning is that there are some people out there that are at least pulling 1.8 and 1.9 binaries, which suggests they're still running 1.8 or 1.9. And I guess technically they could be running a later Kubernetes version, but I think it seems unlikely. Technically, the currently supported Kubernetes version is 1.13, and so 1.12 is not getting security fixes anymore. So I was thinking of at least trying to. We have a mechanism to I call it force people to upgrade. It's effectively deprecate an old version of Kubernetes. We basically mark it. There's a PR up 7423, and what we basically do is we in the channel we say that we require a particular version of Kubernetes, and then if you try to update or something or create a cluster using a version that is less than that, then we emit an error message by default. And if you say, actually, I do want to run it, you say kops run obsolete version equals 1 as an environment variable, and you can still continue to do it, but you do have to sort of explicitly say, I know what I'm doing. So we do break CI workflows, but it is a very easy workaround, and the hope is that users should see that the intention of doing this is to actually make users aware that probably they should be updating.
Should we also mark the kops versions as unsupported on the README? That might nudge
also
people
help.
a little. Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to call them unsupported, but they certainly, yes, they're unsupported by upstream. We work with them, but they are not getting security fixes, which is a big deal. Mark older versions and README. And I mean, eventually I hope we can get to, like, we have never deprecated Kubernetes version. I think we eventually should think about deprecating, like,
yeah, this might be a step to that. Just
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yes, so we can certainly, but we certainly, I think, should not make it trivial to run with versions that are that far out of support, I think.
Agreed.
Yeah. I'm hoping it's just 1 or 2 people that just run big clusters, but we will find out. Well, yeah, and then, so yeah, there's a PR to do that. I'm talking about putting it in the alpha channel. I tested it myself. It seems to work fine. It doesn't seem too risky. And the workaround is very easy. You just set that environment variable and you're able to continue, so.
Is that workaround documented?
It is printed in the message.
Okay.
Whether it's documented, I am not sure.
Okay, I'll take a look at that message, and if not, I'll try to add documents for it.
Okay.
Otherwise, we'll get lots of questions. I agree, but people don't read other messages.
I mean, this one is pretty like, yeah, but yes, it is. Yeah, have a look. Yeah, do search for it, and now you'll see the messages. Yes, but yes, it would be good to have a "why are we doing this" type thing. Why are we turning this off type document. Okay, and then something else we've been doing, I think, for the past couple of sessions, which I have found very helpful to me, is this idea of sharing or agreeing the releases that we're going to do. So I was going to share my screen window, and we can have a look at how we're doing. Obviously, I think I have a tendency to be a little over ambitious, but we did do a bunch. So these are the ones that we did out of the other ones. We released 1.13.0. We promoted our AMI alphas or AMIs from alpha to stable, the previous ones, a bunch of other Kubernetes versions, and we did an etcd manager release with the CTL binaries. Those are now available directly on GitHub, and we also did another etcd manager release. And then we have not done these kops releases yet, and so this is the sort of proposed things that we aim to do. Some of which, at least these first four of which are actually already have PRs up, so I am relatively confident we can achieve them. So there's the AMI refresh going into the alpha channel for 1.11, 1.12, and building new AMIs for 1.13 and 1.14. I'm not aware of any particular issues, but it seems good hygiene to do so. And we're not doing a 1.10 AMI. So that ties into the forcing users into 1.11. Kubernetes release, it's another like carrot to get people to move forward. Putting some Kubernetes the very latest Kubernetes releases into the alpha channel. This is sort of the general, like we just tend to roll these forwards on good hygiene. More importantly, in the stable channel, I was proposing to push 1.13.9 sort of immediately. There's a CVE that was fixed in 1.13.9, and so I think we should put that in there. I think the current version is 1.13.8, so it's not a huge jump, but I think we should probably do that. And then at the same time, I figure we should do the others, and we might as well also do 1.12.10, but I want to highlight 1.12 is not supported, so 1.12.10 does not include the CVE fix, and the CVE fix is for CRDs, sort of like an RBAC vulnerability, I guess. So if you are using, I think it's non-namespaced RBAC, non-namespaced CRDs, then definitely be aware of that CVE. But again, it doesn't, if you trust your workloads and trust your users, it is not, as far as I know, remotely executable or remotely exploitable. And then the one we discussed, forcing users onto the most recent one, Kubernetes 1.11.10. Technically 1.11 and 1.12 no longer supported, but I don't necessarily want to immediately push users onto 1.12 because 1.12 was the one where we introduced etcd3. So it does, that feels like a harder jump, but getting everyone onto 1.11 I think will be a good start. It also means that then, you know, the etcd2 to etcd3 migration is better. I have not tested it very thoroughly from like 1.8 going directly to 1.12. So it would be good to get everyone onto 1.11 as a baseline. The 1.14.0 beta 1, I'm hoping will go out today. We did all the big things. Oh, that's an interesting one, actually. We should talk about the volumes. But we did all the big things, and then we're basically trying to get this last cherry pick in there, just because Jesse's done a bunch of work. So we're getting the etcd manager into there. And then I think we can also cut 1.15.0 alpha 1. I will try to cut that at the same time. And 1.16 alpha 1 remains problematic on the node labels controller. So I think we're in better shape than we have been in terms of backlog. So, because these two are basically more or less ready to go. And so I'm going to try to work on the node labels controller this week, which is, you know, the new permissions, the new restrictions around node labels and what kubelet can set.
Justin, I just noticed we haven't updated the libraries for 1.14 or 1.15 yet. I can do that today if we want before we release. I don't know if you want to wait for that for the beta or not.
You mean the Kubernetes?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not, we're gradually becoming less and less dependent on it. So that's good. Yeah, if you want to do that, that'd be wonderful.
Okay.
I don't know if we should do it for one. What do you think we should? Yeah, I guess we should. I don't believe it matters at the moment, so I think we're okay. But we can certainly do it. I don't know whether we should cut 1.15 and then do 1.16. What do you think?
Yeah, I'll cut 1.14 and 1.15, and I'll wait on 1.16. And we can merge 1.15 once we're a little further into the alpha and probably almost to beta, but yeah.
Okay.
Just, yeah, 1.14.
I think we can release 1.14 without bumping the dependency.
Sounds good. We'll probably have another beta at least soon.
And we can actually release it even without it. I think it's
that's
fine.
Yeah.
But we can also do it if we would like to.
Okay.
It used to be much more of a concern when we had some of the server stuff that was using using aggregate API servers. Mm-hmm. It seems like it's much less important now. We've also like whittled down our dependencies on Kubernetes. I think we're actually looking pretty good now in terms of the dependencies we have left. kubectl moved to staging, or at least most of it did. And so that's going to be a great boon for us in that I think like one of our big last dependencies was on some kubectl libraries. And I'm also moving the drain code into a even more like isolated bit of kubectl. So we should hopefully pull the drain code is one that I think everyone vendors in. So hopefully we can pull that into a different package with absolutely no CLI dependencies at all. And we'll probably still have some CLI dependencies, but we can see what's left. But we're certainly getting a lot better, and you know, we're not using as much of the more complicated machinery that is more volatile. So it's less important. But if you want to do that, it'd be great to update. Bazel is also causing us never-ending fun. I don't know if people have noticed this, but Bazel is marching towards 1.0, and that means that they are doing all their breakages now. So we are in maximum breakage land. I don't know if anyone else has anything they wanted to bring up. I wanted to talk a little bit about the persistent volume thing, but I will give anyone else that wants to mention anything a moment. Okay, let's see, I will stop, no, I won't stop sharing. I will do, let's see, can I find 7416? So there is this sort of outstanding issue around, the idea that the latest, where we go, there we are. The latest instance types on AWS have a maximum of 28 attachments. It seems, so I've circulated this, and sorry, 20 attachments. So the volume limit is lower. And if you're also using the AWS VPC CNI provider, the limit is even lower because ENI network interfaces count against your attachment limit. And so ENIs and volumes draw from the same pool of attachments. This has pretty bad consequences for the scheduler in terms of, you know, when you're using the AWS VPC CNI, the number of volumes you can attach now becomes dynamic based on, or changeable based on the number of pods that you're running, and therefore the number of ENIs you have attached. We have gone around and around on this, and then I think the answer is no one has a great answer. So I think that scheduler and storage teams are now aware of it, but we don't seem to have a great way of doing things. It seems, I think, that the reasonable compromise is this one that I am sort of proposing, where we essentially say, rather than like be fully like pack each node to the max, let's just sort of decide that of the 28 attachments, 20 we're going to have 20 EBS volumes, 4 ENIs, and 4 instances, and that sort of thing. So we essentially like pre-slice it, and we don't necessarily. So it's not fully optimal. If you never used volumes, for example, you might not be able to run as many pods. Or if you run storage heavy, lots of volumes, you might not be able to run as many. You have more ENIs that you have reserved that you're probably not going to use. But that's why either way, it seems like doing anything better, it feels like it's a long way away. And so the predicate, the setting that RIPTA proposes, where we basically have a fixed max persistent volumes that you can set on the kube scheduler, feels like a reasonable approach. It would be nice if that was instance type specific, and I think that sort of thing can come later. But for now, this seems like the best option. I don't know if anyone has any other views, or has hit this in the real world and is gonna be bummed if we only have 20 volumes and 4 ENIs or anything like that.
So are we hard coding the number of volumes in ENIs, or?
Not yet, but this lets you hard code it.
Okay. We've had to deal with this a little bit, specifically on the ENI and EBS volume side, but it's been working okay. We haven't hit too many issues yet, but yeah, I'm just wondering what the ratio is going to be here. So.
Yeah, and the math is sort of funny. If you keep the pod limit at 110, right, and you know that you have 50 IPs per ENI, you know you're never going to have more than 3 ENIs, so we have 1 spare. But if you're on a smaller instance type, but also you have to set 1 max persistent volume across every node in the system, and you can't sort of mix and match based on the size of the nodes. So it's not perfect, but I think exposing this option lets people set a limit that will stop things breaking. And I think probably we're going to have to start setting some sort of lower limit, some sort of limit that is lower for when these instance types become more prevalent. So this is sort of a first step towards that, but is not the final answer. And honestly, it is all the M5 generation, the 5 generations. So I think it's most if not all of the newest instance types. So I think the writing's on the wall in terms of where this is going to go. All right. I don't know if there's anything else anyone wants to discuss. Otherwise, everyone gets 30 minutes of their Friday back. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Yes.
Thanks.
Have a good one.